Kind of, sort of. Okay, we could get one more shot here. See if we can get 100.
Oh!
98.4. That's about all. It's cold.
It's cold.
Yeah, we'll let it go this time.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Now, from the world's most famous beach, from where beach racing began, it's the Legends of Racing radio show, live from racing's North Turn Beach Bar and Grill in Ponce Inlet, Florida. The Legends of Racing radio show with your host, Buzz McKim, and co-host, Gary Keller.
All righty. We do thank you, everybody. Appreciate that. Thank you, everyone here, taking time out of your day. And everyone out there, we thank you for tuning in.
And winter has returned in.
Yeah. Don't know where you are, but we're pretty damn cold.
Yeah. Well, we got the air coming off the ocean, too. It looks cold out there.
Yeah.
I'm admiring the wedding party over there that's freezing after having a wedding on the beach.
Oh, gee.
Golly.
Those folks must have really wanted to get married.
True love.
Yeah. We do. True love will conquer all, that's for sure. Well, we have a great show today. Great stories. If you like cars, this is your show. And I've got Mr. Bill Warner right here.
Yes, sir, Bill.
All right.
Welcome.
Bill's the founder of the Amelia Island Concours d'Elegance. And how did that whole thing come about, Bill?
Well, I was kind of known as a kind of car weenie at Jackson.
Yeah.
And the public relations lady from the Ritz-Carlton called me one day and said, I was told that you could put together a Concours d'Elegance. I said, I'm an engineer by education, which made me eminently qualified to do that, And I said, well, I had confidence. I thought we could do that. Confidence is the feeling you have when you don't truly understand the situation.
Right.
And first year we had Mercedes-Benz as a sponsor, and I said, well, we needed drawing cards, so they brought Sterling Moss over.
Oh, right.
Everything kind of grew from that.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Sterling. How was he? A pretty good fella?
Great. Yeah, we had him back on the 20th anniversary because, to be honest with you, I didn't do it right the first time. We had an honoree, but we didn't focus on the cars of the honoree.
Right.
So he came back the 20th year, and we had like 30 cars that he drove in his
Holy
career.
cow.
Yeah, it was the largest agglomeration of Sterling Moss cars ever.
That's
in any one
amazing.
spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
3 Mercedes Grand Prix car. Well, the Mille Miglia car, the Streamliner, and the Grand Prix car.
Is that right? The Streamliner too, huh?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That just sold.
Sold again, the Streamliner did?
Yeah, that was in the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum. And they just auctioned, RM just auctioned off. I think it went for somewhere in $40-50 million.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And hadn't run in years.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. Yeah, and every year was just one thing after another. You just outdid yourself year after year after year. It just used to blow me away, the people and the cars that you get up there.
And that was always a challenge. You know, you'd finish it. We worked all year long. I had a crew of 9 people who worked on it, and 700 volunteers. One of them here tonight. Well, Jimmy Britz is here. He handled the race cars.
Always good to see Jimmy.
Hey, Jimmy.
Hans Dietermont, who handled the volunteers, and so we had a good group of people who had an assignment. Every year they knew what they were going to do, but we would work all year long on that. And I always built it around a racing personality.
Yeah.
And we had some of the greatest. You know, Dan Gurney, Carroll Shelby. I could go down the whole list. Jim Hall, John Surtees, the Rutherfords, or Johnny Rutherford, the Unsers. And every year I'd pick one, and then we would all year long working, getting cars of their career on the field. Then we'd expand to, the Concours d'Elegance cars, if you want to call that.
Yeah. Did you ever have anyone decline?
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
No,
not,
the first year or two, yeah, because we weren't known. After we got established, I think Barry McGuire helped get us established with an award on the 8th year. No, I'd go to John Kraft, my friend here in the front row, and I'd say, we need some stock cars. And he'd come up with the great cars and put them out there. And, I had a network I worked with on various makes. I'd go to Dale Miller for the Porsches or Kevin Jeanette. I'd go to Greg Jones on Ferraris. but I would come up with a theme. I say, here's what I want to do. How are we going to do it? And they'd come back and help me put that together.
It's amazing. I know every year we went up there, it was just incredible. I remember the one year that it rained and you had the chaparrals in the ballroom.
Thank you. That was the worst year of my life.
Yeah.
That was
Sorry.
2003, but who's
Yeah,
counting?
you were stressed that time. But
yeah.
but Jim Hall and Bobby Allison cranked up the chaparrals in the ballroom of the hotel.
They did, because the manager was quitting that day, and he let me do that on his run. But had he kept his job Monday, he probably wouldn't have let us do that.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I think Bobby Unser was there that year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He came a number of times. Other than the year we honored him, he came back. We did Legends of Offie one year.
Oh, really?
He was with his brother.
Yeah.
And they had a nice conversation. We've had Don Garlitz, and one of the real challenges I had one year we had announced we were going to do the three greats. It was going to be Richard Petty for stock cars, Sterling Moss for sports cars, and Don Garlitz for drag racing.
Oh boy,
they were the panel.
Yep.
That's one heck of a portfolio.
Yeah. Well, Sunday before the Friday seminar, I get a call from Susie Moss that Sterling had fallen down the elevator shaft and broke both his ankles.
Holy cow.
So I'm sitting there, I hang up the phone, my wife Jane says, "What's wrong?" I said, "We've been promoting the three greats, and one of them just fell down an elevator shaft." She said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "This is tough." I said, "I got to find another great, but if I call that great and say you didn't make the first cut, you know." So I had a pretty good relationship with Carroll Shelby. So I called him up. I said, "Shell, I got a problem." He says, "What's that?" I says, "Sterling was going to be here next week to do a panel with Richard Petty and Don Garlitz, and he fell down the elevator shaft. You all right, boy?" I said, "Oh, yeah, he's fine. He broke his ankles, didn't hit his head." He said, "Well, what can I do?" I said, "I need you to fill for him." He says, "When is it?" I said, "Thursday." "Thursday?" I said, "That's 4 days away." I said, "Yeah." He says, "I'll call you back." An hour goes by. Get the call from Shelby. He says, "Okay, I'll be there, but I don't fly commercial. I want an airplane." I said, "No problem." I didn't know how I was going to get an airplane.
Yeah.
I didn't have any money.
Oh, yeah.
So I called Rob Moran at Mercedes-Benz, gave me $10,000, and Rob Myers at RM Auctions, they gave me $10,000. I had $20,000.
All right.
I got an airplane,
Beautiful.
turboprop,
Yeah.
not a jet.
Oh, well.
We
He's
flew
bigger,
him over.
skippy choosers, right?
First thing he said is, "I'm glad to be here, but don't ever send a turboprop for me again."
Oh, wow.
But he was great. And Garlitz was fantastic. He stole the show. He said, "I learned 3 things when I raced drag cars." He says, Top Fuel. It says, gasoline's for cleaning parts,
Yeah.
alcohol's for drinking, and nitromethane's for racing.
There you go.
Yeah.
You could inscribe that on a piece of wood.
I think he's used that line more than once, but
Yeah,
it was
most
good
likely.
that day. But it was always about racing for us. We became known as the Racers Concord because I realized that many of these guys, when their career was over, they were almost forgotten.
Yeah.
So in highlighting them at Amelia Island, we added new life to it. In fact, we did Lynn St. James my last year.
Oh, really?
And she came up, he says, "You know, you started my career again. I'm doing all these shows and doing things." She says, I was beginning to feel I was forgotten. I said, "No, you never be forgotten."
No, she's a sweetheart.
That was one thing about Bobby and Donnie Allison. I always felt like they promoted themselves well after their racing careers. You know, they hopped on the bandwagon. Don't know who got them started doing that. Maybe even Buzz did it. I don't know. But, you know, they were so good at getting themselves out there. Some of these guys are really good. And some guys just, you know, Ricky Rudd, some of those other guys, you know, Kenny Craven, they just fall out. And
Well, Ricky's living up on Amelia Island now.
Who?
Oh, is he really?
Ricky is, yeah.
I'll be darned.
It's kind of funny when we start out. We'd have the driver up there to talk to the audience. We'd have a dinner for about 800 people, and they'd talk about their career. And some of them are great in discussing their career. Some of them were terrible. So I decided we were going to go to a hosted thing. So like I had Derek Bell host Jackie Eakes.
Oh, right.
I had Sam Posey would host some. So I would try to match drivers who knew each other. And so we had a conversation up front, which looked like just a conversation between those two, and the audience was observing.
That's
There you
that's
go.
a neat gallery.
Yeah.
So when did your love of racing start? As a boy?
Oh, yeah. I don't remember when it wasn't.
You raced, right?
My tricycle was a Buick, and I never had money to go racing. So finally, a friend of mine who's in the insurance business. I found a Brabham BT8 in a South Carolina junkyard. I was selling filters, and I was on the road, and I heard a rumor about a birdcage Maserati.
Oh, my gosh.
And I went to find it, and it turned out it wasn't a birdcage. It was a 450S, Frank Harrison. And it was gone. But the guy says, I got a race car here. It's a Brabham. I said, well, I don't want a Formula car. He says, no, it's a sports racer.
Oh.
So I went out and I bought it for $2,900.
Wow.
It was the ex-Denny Home Tourist Trophy winning car.
You're kidding.
Undefeated in under 2-liter racing. Had raced at Laguna Seca, Riverside, all over England. And one day I was having dinner with David Piper. And he said, I raced against that car in Tripoli in North Africa. So
wow.
That car got around.
What kind of shape was it in when you got it?
It was complete except for the plexiglass air screen.
Right.
And it had the original ignition key, and the starter motor had gone. So I go up, and it's a rainy day. I took my wife's brand new station wagon, put a hitch on it, went up, borrowed a trailer, get up there, and I said to the guy, you got to demonstrate it. He says, it won't run. I said, well, how are we going to run? We're going to tie it and tow down Monticello Road, and you dump the clutch and get it started. I said, no, I don't think we'll do that. Rainy day with slick tires.
Yeah.
So I took it home, and then 2 years later, the guy called me. He says, I got a Cooper with a Ford engine. You want it? Cooper, Ford. Good chance it was a Shelby King Cobra. So it was the last one. It was called a Lang Cooper.
Talk
Really?
about a landmine
Golly.
find.
6,900. Well, I paid $6,000 for it. Then the guy came out with a big case, like a ammunition case, full of new old stock Kaladi gears, and he wanted $900 more. Well, that made me mad. I paid it anyway. But
Yeah.
that car's in
I'm sure you could have sold 2 or 3 of them and got your 900 back. Easy.
Easy. That car's in Switzerland now, and the Brabham is in Japan. I raced it for 12 years, and I began thinking, laying down between 2 11-gallon aluminum tanks of gasoline was not the smartest thing for me to do. So I sold it, and it went to California to a number of owners, and it ended up in Japan.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So what were you trying to accomplish? Being a collector, a racer, a little bit of all the above?
Yeah, maintaining. These cars, they got to survive. They're historical.
I agree.
And they need to be seen by people today on what it was like. And I just liked it, and it was a cheap way to go racing. Although those cars were worn out, I had a guy named Colin Day who I found here in Daytona. He was he used to work for Lotus, and he built the tubs at Lola, and he did the tubs for Ford GT with John Wire, and then he couldn't travel because he had diabetes. He'd come to the United States to run Peter Revson's car for a guy named Bill Kay. And because of diabetes, he ended up working at the Sears store. So I hired him, and he came up and restored the Brabham.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll be darned.
How good of a racer, good or bad, was Pete Revson? Maybe
Great.
Was he great?
In fact, at that Sebring race with Steve McQueen had broken his foot in a motorcycle accident, had it in a cast, so he wasn't at his top of his game. But Revson was the one who I think he drove 7 of the 12 hours.
Yeah.
And towards the end, that was the greatest endurance race. And Andretti will tell you this. Everybody was there. Ferrari, Porsche with the 917s, Matra, Alfa Romeo, all the big drivers. And here was Steve McQueen and Peter Revson in a 2-year-old 908. And it comes down to the end. Rodriguez ran into Mark Donohue with the Ferrari and the Porsche. The Alphas never were going to make it. The Matras puked out, And in the end, all the Ferraris are out except for Ignazio Giunti and Nino Vaccarella in a 512. And they weren't catching Revson. And they were for a little bit, but they weren't going to win the race if they stayed in the car. So Mauro Frigeri, who was the team manager, grabbed Andretti, whose car had broken, and put him in there, said, you will not let a movie star win this race. and they won with something like 12 minutes ago and won by a 23-second margin.
Really?
It was a fabulous race. And my favorite photograph when I was working for Road and Track and Sports Car Graphic, I had a Hasselblad Super Wide. I got down right in the pits. They brought the car and stopped right where I was. Andretti goes up on top of the car. They throw the trophy in the air. A Moet Chandon bottle is turned up, and the label's turned so I could sell that to Moet and Chandon too. And I got this shot that was just a luck shot. I just happened to have the right camera with the right strobe light with the right film at the right time.
Jeez.
Wow, I'd like to see that.
Well, so much of your life really is all about luck. Right place, right time.
Oh, I'm going through life proving I'd rather be lucky than smart.
Yeah.
I was always
You didn't have to
lucky.
agree so fast, but that's all right.
Yeah. I was always mesmerized with Pete Russin. You know, I mean, coming from all that money.
Well, that was his uncle.
Yes.
Yeah, Charles Russin was his uncle.
But it
he
filtered
did
down
have
to
money.
him.
Oh, sure.
His uncle supported his racing career.
Yeah.
And he was very talented, from what I understand.
He was?
And he was killed in Indianapolis, am I correct?
No, he died in
Formula One.
Formula One?
Yeah,
In
that's
the
right.
shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he was in the shadow.
I think he was driving the shadow.
Oh, okay. I didn't
Wow.
realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he died in South Africa, I think, didn't he?
That was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sad.
But I saw him drive McLaren at Road Atlanta.
Oh, really?
Can-Am.
The one he drove at Indy?
No, this Can-Am.
Oh, the Can-Am.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was good. Then after he died, Tony Dean took his place.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, those Can-Am cars at Road Atlanta would have to be something to see, yeah?
Oh, well, that was when they had the dip.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember David Hobbs one time was driving the new Lola. I think it wasn't a T222. I called it the Steed Lola, sponsored by Steed Oil. And it got there late. And he went out in Atlanta. You came down the straightaway. You really had a dip, and it really bottomed out. And it would come up a hill and under a bridge. So on those cars, I mean, I used to race Camaros there at 130 miles an hour. It was kind of scary, but in a Can-Am car, 200, it was really scary.
Oh, my gosh.
And when he went down, they hadn't set the car up right, and it bottomed, and it sheared off the lower A arm. And
Holy
he did
cow.
360s up the hill and stopped.
Yeah.
Just short of hitting the wall. I said, "What'd you do, David?" He says, "Well, the people were applauding, so I stood up at the car and took a bow." He had to be scared. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you had a lot of blowovers in that area, too, didn't you?
Yeah, I can name them. Hurley Haywood did a blowover. For those that know what a blowover is, there's a little rise, and if you don't have the rear wing and the front nose set right, the air gets under, the car just takes off, just like you pull back on a stick. Charlie Kemp, 917. Denny Holm, McLaren M20.
Bob Aiken?
No, Bob Aiken
No, he
didn't
never
fly
did?
there. No, Hurley did in
Okay.
practice. And Jack Baldwin, it was a practice. No one was out there, no safety crew. Baldwin sees him, goes over. He's upside down, crawls over the fence. Jack is a hero of mine. He goes out. Hurley was swallowing his tongue.
Oh.
Pulled his tongue out, saved his life.
Oh, my gosh. Holy cow. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Mr. Bill Warner, everybody.
All right, Bill.
Fantastic.
The caution flag is out. Time for a break. We'll be right back with the Legends of Racing radio show. At Beach Boys Embroidery and Tees, it's all about making you happy. Beach Boys Embroidery can customize your athletic golf apparel, caps, hats, badges, buttons, magnets, backpacks, bags, totes, clocks, watches, and of course, T-shirts. Sure, they're at 2033 South Ridgewood Avenue in South Daytona, and they're waiting for you to call now. 386-255-5880. Beach Boys Embroidery and Tees. Let Aloha Marine get you on the water with huge discounts on great brands like Bayliner, Carolina Skiff, Hurricane, Key West, and Regal. Pay as little as $169 a month with 10% down and approved credit. Don't wait. Get to Aloha Marine, 1700 North Nova Road, Holly Hill, Monday through Saturday. 47 years and always better than boat show prices. We're back from where it all began. Racing's original North Turn Beach Bar and Grill. The Legends of Racing radio show continues with your host, Buzz McKim, and co-host, Gary Keller.
Oh, boy, you guys are something else. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. This segment is being brought to you locally by Staples on International Speedway Boulevard. Anything for the office, any kind of shipping and packing or whatever you got, they can take care of it. And if you want to check us out, you can go to YouTube and go to the Legends of Racing radio show page on YouTube. You can watch it live, or you can go an hour later when we post it on Facebook. And so we're here with Bill Warner talking about cars. And that's what we're all about, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
especially old cars.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Old guys talking about old cars.
Well, I feel kind of out of sorts being legends of motorsport. I'm not a legend. I'm just old.
Oh,
No, you're a legend.
no,
I mean,
you're.
I could only dream about owning the portfolio of these cars. I mean, it's just amazing, what you have. Out of all these cars, and we can't talk about all of them, but which one was your favorite?
It's hard to say. It's like, which is your favorite child? I have a Porsche 911 I bought new in 1971 for when you could buy a Porsche for $7,900.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I drove it in the '75 Cannonball. So
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And didn't do well, but had a good time.
Yeah, I'll bet.
My co-driver didn't tell me till 2 o'clock in the morning in Virginia he couldn't drive at night.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so
Oh, that's sweet.
That was not good.
No.
The Edsel Ford Speedster.
Yes.
It's a great find.
Yes.
I've been really lucky in finding significant cars.
Yeah. Could you tell us that story? That is just the most remarkable story, I think, of anything you've got.
Well, in 1934, Edsel Ford decided he wanted a car that had a continental look. And we actually did this in 32. He went to the Paris Auto Show, came back. They made him a 32 Ford Roadster with a boat tail and cycle fenders. He said, now I want something swoopier. So he had Bob Gregory, who was head of design at that time, build this one-off special car that had looks of a Bugatti. It was very low, and it was a Ford, aluminum body. And I had heard the car was in DeLand, Florida. It had gone from Edsel Ford when he died. The estate sold it. It went to Los Angeles, was at Coachcraft, and Keenan Wynn, the actor, used to work at Coachcraft between gigs. So the car was there at that time. They painted it red. It was in Road and Track magazine in 1948. For $3,200, which
Really?
was a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
Twice the price of a Lincoln. So I lost track of it, and I saw it in an English magazine. They wanted to know where it was. Well, I knew it was in DeLand. So I was judging with Michael Lamb at at Meadowbrook. I said, you wrote a story on that car. He said, yeah. I said, can you remember the guy's name? Oh, this is Palash, P-A-L-L-A-S-C-H. I said, well, that's unusual. So I Googled Palash, came up, Orange City, Florida, which is next to DeLand. And I called him up, and I was having a sales meeting at my filter company, and I took the luncheon break and called him the number up. I said, I'm looking for Earl Palash. He's dead. Well, I'm looking for whoever knows anything about a Ford Speedster. That's me. I'm his son. I said, well, that car hadn't been seen in 50 years. Would you consider bringing it to Amelia Island? He says, I don't want to bring it to any show. I want to sell it.
Right there.
I went back to the sales meeting and said, guys, you're doing great. Go out and sell some more filters. I'll be back in 2 hours. And I was in a car. I was in DeLand an hour later.
Yeah, is that right?
And it took 3 trips. Finally got it negotiated. We decided on a
How
price.
much? How much? Come
I'd
on.
rather not say.
Come
But it was
on.
not a lot.
Not a lot.
No. Not a lot at all.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
it was kind of funny because I said to the guy, I'll bring you a cashier's check. So I don't want a cashier's check. I want cash. I said, call your bank because I don't want to run around with cash, So he says, okay. He called his bank. He says, okay, I'll take a cashier's check plus 25 grand in cash. I said, okay. So I get the cashier's check, put it in an envelope, got the cash, put it in an envelope, went back, got one of my salesmen, said, come with me. If I'm getting shot, you are too. We went down there. Of course, Kirk White had been looking for that car.
Oh, yes. Poor old Kirk.
I saw Kirk the week before. He says, you looking for any cars? I said, well, I found one, but I'm working on, but I don't want to talk about it. He said, call me when you get it. And he was up here at New Smyrna.
New Smyrna, that's right.
This way.
Yep.
And so I got the car in the trailer, and we're in Orange City. And I called Kirk up. I said, remember I told you I was working on something? He says, yeah, what'd you get? I said, you ever heard of Edsel Ford Speedster? He says, you SOB. He says, you got that car? I said, yeah, was it in Panama City? I said, it was in 1959. It's 18 miles from your house over here in Orange City.
Yeah.
Boom, hangs the phone up. Next day the phone rings, says, Bill, this is Kirk. I said, yeah. He says, I heard you bought the Edsel Ford Speedster. I said, yeah. He says, he offered me a huge number. I said, no, I'm going to keep it for a while. So he hung up. And that afternoon we went down to St. Augustine where the original designer, Bob Gregory, was 91. Wow. Brought him out, shot pictures, a wire service, get pictures. Kirk goes out the next day, picks his newspaper up, pours his cup of coffee, flops the paper over. There's a picture of a car. Rare Ford found 18 miles from here. Phone rings again. You trying to kill me? I said, no. So that was one that got away from him.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
And not many got away from old Kirk,
no, I
that's
kept
for
the
sure.
car 10 years and got so valuable that I couldn't enjoy it. My wife and I drove it down to Daytona one time for the Turkey Rod Run. And I put it up at auction. with RM, and it went for $1.5 million. It was a good
Wow.
one, yeah.
Fantastic.
And so I called Kirk. I said, I've always wanted a Ferrari Daytona. This is your time to get a piece of that car. So I bought a Daytona from him. But the car is now in the Edsel and Eleanor Ford Estate Museum in Dearborn, or not Dearborn, Grosse Pointe, where it should be.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was a family car, wasn't it?
It was Edsel Ford's personal car. And the funny thing was, Bob Gregory told me that old man Henry Ford hated that car and told Edsel he wasn't to drive it, and made Edsel pay for the car. It cost Edsel Ford $100,000 in 1934 to have that car built.
Really?
And it was built at the aircraft division of Ford, where they built the tri-motor planes. So it was all aircraft. All the aluminum had webbing between that and steel. All the rivets were flushed. It was pretty super.
Well, he tried to hide. He tried to hide it from his father.
He did.
Yeah, that he was even building it.
Oh
Correct?
yeah. And in fact, Edsel and his father had a really strange relationship.
Terrible.
The father treated him
Killed
terrible.
him. He killed him. Browbeat him to death in a basic way.
He died of stomach cancer.
Yeah.
And when he died, Edsel Ford picked Bob Gregory up and took him over to the test track in the Lincoln that he had, the limousine. They drove around for 2 hours, and Henry Ford never said a thing.
Really?
He felt so bad about losing Edsel, and Bob was kind of Edsel's partner in design.
Yeah. Isn't that something? Well, what a story.
That was a great car.
Kind of like the old song, Carly Simon, "Killing Me Softly," and that's exactly what Henry Ford did to Edsel.
Yeah.
Started out with stomach ulcers, and went into cancer. To have, and then he mourned his loss. And
exactly.
He more or less died when Edsel did.
And Edsel had a designer's eye.
Oh.
He created the Continental.
Unbelievable.
Oh, really?
He and Bob Gregory were sitting down in a restaurant. He says, Continental sales are terrible. Zephyr sales. Says they weren't a Continental then. The Zephyr was dying. So Gregory sketched out on a napkin how they sectioned a Zephyr and created the Continental. And I asked him one time, I said, Mr. Gregory, you put a Continental kit on the back of that car. You put a spare tire outside when all the manufacturers were putting them in the car. It was just disappearing. I said, what prompted you to do that? He says, it's the only place I could put it. There's no room.
What a design, though. It worked. It worked fantastically.
Well,
Until 1948, if you remember, they went to a wide grill and it looked ugly.
Yeah.
And I said, why did you do that? Cadillac was spreading the grill and going to the bar grill. So Lincoln copies him. It failed. That car, the waterfall grill was what it should have.
Right. If you want to see one of Bill's cars, he's got a 1928 Chevy Roadster Beach Racer that's out here at the Museum of the Motorsports Hall of Fame. They have it up on the bank, don't they?
It was on the floor last time I was there. We found that car in a garage in Jacksonville, and it was I think it's the only beach racer left.
I believe you're right.
It survived. A guy from Jacksonville owned it, and back then they had nicknames. It was Bert. It was his first name, but he went by the name of Deacon Moyers.
Oh, really?
And then they had a driver named Dynamite Dobson.
Dynamite.
That's a good name for a driver.
Okay.
So I found this car in the garage, and Randy Kimberly restored it for me. The chassis was done. I couldn't fit in it. It took two people to pull me out.
I'll be darned.
And so I donated it to the Motorsports Hall of Fame because it is the oldest beach racing car that they've got.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, it's a magnificent little piece. The workmanship is tremendous on it. You wouldn't expect, it to be such a nice piece for what they used it for.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story on Jimmy Britz, who's here today. The bodywork on that car was strips that went into a boat tail. They didn't know how to fold metal back. It was built in a garage, so they just put strips down and made boat tail. I called Jimmy over and I said, great fabricator. I said, Jimmy, I need a tail for this car because if you looked at it from the front, the tail went that way. It wasn't square. And he says, well, I can roll that out and make a nice boat tail just like an Indy car. I said, no, I want it to be just like it is now with the welds on the outside. And, and if it's not straight, it's not straight. So he fabricated the body, well, the tail of the body. The scuttle was good.
I'll be darned.
And the chassis was perfect. So.
That's something.
I would love to have the money that you've made just off finding these cars.
Well, they find me.
They find you?
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
Well, except for the Brabham and the King Cobra. I've missed two. I missed an Alfa Romeo 6C 2300 chassis engine and everything in the same junkyard. because it had a Studebaker body on it. No one recognized it. And I passed on it. And I missed an RS60 Porsche Spyder that finished second at Sebring. The guy wanted $13,500 for it. And I just paid $2,900 for a Brabham and $6,000 for a King Cobra.
Yeah.
Why would I buy an older, slower car for $13,500?
You got a point there.
That car's worth $6 million.
Oh, Lord, is that right?
Yeah.
Holy
Bill Lyon in California bought it.
Is that right?
I have to ask you about this Corvair Mazda Spider convertible.
Yeah.
A unique car.
Can you hold on to that for a second?
Yeah,
We're going to go for a quick break. We'll be right back. We'll talk about the Corvair Spider. Mr. Bill Warner, everybody.
All right.
The caution flag is out. Time for a break. We'll be right back with the Legends of Racing radio show. Racing's original North Turn is our broadcast headquarters. If you're looking for a good drink, great entertainment, and the best in food, they're right on the beach at Racing's original North Turn. Come on down to dinner tonight. Here are a couple of testimonials. These are actual testimonials from people who have enjoyed the North Turn. Been there many times, always great food and drinks, great location on the beach. And another, what a great experience. It's my new favorite restaurant in the Daytona Beach area, Racing's original North Turn on South Atlantic Avenue. That's A1A in Ponce Inlet, about 3.2 miles south of the Dunlawton Bridge and A1A intersection. It's Racing's original North Turn, a restaurant, museum, bar, gift shop, live music. That's Racing's North Turn. Thanks to you, the original North Turn Beach Bar and Grill has been voted top 10 beach bar in Florida year after year after year. We're back from where it all began. Racing's original North Turn Beach Bar and Grill. The Legends of Racing radio show continues with your host, Buzz McKim, and co-host, Gary Keller.
All righty. Thank you, everybody. We're here with Bill Warner, hearing some fantastic stories about some incredible cars, and we're only halfway through. And this segment is being brought to you locally by Daytona Flea and Farmers Market, voted one of the top 5 markets in the country by USA Weekend. Visit our Shop Now network and our Shop Now at Daytona Flea and Farmers Market Facebook page for the latest in vendor tours. And we were getting ready to talk about a Corvair, of all things.
Yeah. I've had 2 Corvairs. I had a black Monza Spider coupe I bought one time. And I thought that was probably one of the worst cars I'd ever bought. And I put an ad in Auto Week, and a guy who now owns Lime Rock called me, and he was from Connecticut, and he was vacationing in Brunswick. He says, I had a car just like it in college. I'd like to come down and look at it. It's for sale. I said, yeah. I said, before you come down, remember, this car is like your first girlfriend. He says, what do you mean? I said, the memory of her is better than she ever was. He came down and bought it. So I wasn't really into Corvairs, but I was racing for Chevy, for Bill Mitchell, which is the Chevy deal in the Firehawk thing. And a guy named Jim Spalding, who was head of Chevy Performance Parts, would travel with us. And he had this Corvair he bought. And it was interesting. It was built for Bunky Knudsen, who was at that time general manager and vice president of General Motors, later became president of Ford for a short period of time. And when you were an executive General Motors, you could get anything you wanted.
Absolutely.
So he'd get 5 Chevys every year and take them to Chevy Engineering, and they would modify them for him with his color, which was, they called it Bunky Blue, but it was really Cadillac Fire Mist Blue. So this Corvair is Fire Mist Blue. It's got Kelsey Hayes wire wheels. They crackle finished all the engine compartment, chrome plated everything, put Abarth exhausts on it. It's a turbo. Half the exhausts are fake, the design thing. Put in gridded carpets, custom interior. So I said, well, if you want to sell it, call me. Well, 30 years later, he called me.
30 years.
And you got to be patient.
Yeah, I guess so.
And the price was right. I mean, it was nothing. But then I got it restored. And when you take a car apart and you're restoring it, it's kind of like skydiving.
Oh.
You jump out of the plane. You don't have a whole lot of decisions to make. So when it was all over, I had probably the only $100,000 Corvair in the world.
Oh, Lord.
But it's a nice Corvair.
Oh, a nice Corvair, right.
Still
Hey, we got Tony time here. Time for Tony. What you got today, bud?
Well, first off, I don't know if you guys have seen it yet. For the Darlington Throwback Weekend, the Wood Brothers are throwing back to the 65 Indianapolis 500.
Oh, boy.
When Ford took them out to pit Jim Clark's car.
Right.
The 20 stock car has that green and yellow paint
Huh.
they used on the Lotus.
Well, that's very cool.
It is a handsome race car. It is.
And this is the 60th anniversary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Curious if you've heard, the group that has the Sunbeam Slug.
Yeah.
They're restoring
Yeah.
it. They want to bring it back
Yep.
to the beach in 27. They were supposedly here a few weeks ago to talk to city fathers. I don't know which ones. Did you know how that turned out?
I don't know how that turned out, but I was at Lord Montague's 2 years ago and saw the car under restoration. And they wanted to bring it to Daytona for the 100th anniversary. And I told them what I'd help grease the skids. So I made some calls because they're looking for financing the car over here. And I heard they met with the Chamber of Commerce here. And I tried to put them in touch with the Daytona Speedway. I think it's going to happen, but I don't know how it's going to be funded. But the car will be here.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great question, Tony. Yeah.
That wasn't loaded either. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in that meeting with those folks, and they're real excited about Daytona. And it'll happen. It'll definitely happen. They're going to be making a few more trips over here, and they're putting the pieces together. And a nice bunch of people, that's for
twin
sure.
motor. Twin motor.
Twin motors. They're all going to have one that'll run, though,
Yeah.
because the tires are only made for 75 miles an hour. So that's as fast as they're going to run the car.
You
But-
wouldn't want to do that either.
Oh, no.
We,
No.
we, we, could,
100-year-old car.
Oh, gosh.
we could do a program on the next topic, and that's IROC.
Yeah.
One of your loves, one of mine, I'm sure one of
And
us.
flying the flag.
Of course, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those scenarios gone too soon. It just didn't last long enough.
Right.
Should be going on still today.
Well, Ray's trying to do that.
Yeah.
Is he really?
Yeah.
All right.
Evernham, Ray Evernham.
What
correct.
happened was when we had Jackie Eakes, I knew he drove IROC, so I found a car reputed to be the Jackie Eakes Outlands or IROC car in the UK. So I called a guy named John Trussell, a really nice guy. So I arranged to ship the car over here and be part of the Jackie Eakes thing. So after the show, I called him. I said, how do you want the car back? He says, I don't want it back. Find someone to buy it.
Oh, boy.
And so we agreed on a price, and I bought the car, and it was black at the time, and we thought it was the black IROC car. So in the meantime, Ray started buying up all the IROC cars because he's going to reestablish IROC, but he wants the old cars. And we're going to be at Monterey this
Wow.
August with him. He's going to have
Sweet.
Jeff Gordon, Bill Elliott,
Mark Martin.
Mark Martin. Mark Martin's got his Dodge still. Bobby Labonte, Danny Sullivan, Scott Pruitt,
Wow.
Jensen Button, and more.
Yeah.
And they're going to do an exhibition. And you know how that's going to work. They're going to get all these great drivers. Going to say, we want an exhibition. That flag's going to drop, and it ain't going to be an exhibition.
Oh, hell no. Competition deluxe.
So
Yes, sir, buddy.
I sent the black car up to Ray's shop in Mooresville, and I said, let's check the history on it. So Det Callum and Det Callum and one of the other guys, I think of them, they're doing a history on it. So they took the paint down in a corner, found out it was a yellow car. So he called me, he says, you don't have the Andretti Unser X car. I said, I don't. He said, no. I said, well, that's kind of disappointing. He says, no, you got the Al Unser Niki Lauda car.
Oh, my.
And the story was Niki Lauda was Formula One champ, and as Formula One champ, you were committed to riding the IROC. So he had a contract with Roger Penske to run the IROC at Riverside, and he had a contract with Bernie Ecclestone to run Formula One. Well, Bernie calls Roger, says, I can't have him driving that car. If he gets hurt, I'm out millions of dollars. So Lauda was betwixt and between. He had a contract with both of them. So what he did was he got in the car and gave it a clutch job in 3 laps. Smoked the whole thing, got out, got on his plane and flew back to Europe. And they knew he was going to do it because he filed a flight plan before the race was over.
He blew it up.
Yeah, so it's the only time Niki Lauda ever drove the car, so it's in the Niki Lauda livery right now.
Wow. I mean, what something for eyes to see. St. Louis in August? Is that
No,
correct?
no, it's going to be Monterey, California.
Monterey.
It's historic races. They're going to feature Formula One and IROC.
Oh, my. No kidding.
Yeah, we did it in Lime Rock. We brought the IROC cars together in Lime Rock last August. And I tell you, when they cranked all those cars up, the mountains in Connecticut shook. It's
boy.
fabulous.
Why do you think NASCAR did away with the IROC series?
I don't think it was NASCAR that did away with it.
Really?
It was money because Roger Penske started the first year was with Porsche Carreras, and they were too expensive to run. So then he took production Camaros and made IROC, identical IROC cars, IROC International Race of Champions.
Correct.
So Richard Petty went to Roger and said, these cars are like showroom stock cars with a roll cage. If we get into a really NASCAR kind of accident, someone's going to get hurt. So then they went to Banjo Matthews in the second-gen Camaros, which is the one I got. They made 15 of those, 3 practice cars and 12 race cars. And that you draw every weekend, so my car was driven by Al Unser won Michigan with it, then Al Holbert ran it, then Gordon Johncock, Bobby Allison, Buddy Baker, Benny Parsons, Danny Angias, Nicky Lauda, Clay Regazzoni, and Alan Jones.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Other than that, who was driving it?
Well, that's the funny thing. When people say, what made you think of buying an IROC? I said, if you have a race car, you say, Mary Andretti drove this. Okay. But you get to all those names on one car.
Yeah.
That's pretty significant.
Pretty amazing.
Yes.
Hey, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Mr. Bill Warner, everybody.
All right.
The caution flag is out. Time for a break. We'll be right back with the Legends of Racing radio show. Daytona Flea and Farmers Market is still the one for great savings and the best variety. Whether you need flowers and trees for your home or you're looking for great prices on Daytona Beach souvenirs, the market is the place to go. The market features 1,000 booths, 2 air-conditioned malls, a restaurant and 9 snack shacks. Hops Grill features gourmet burgers and garden blend salads. Treat yourself to a great variety of brat and hot dog creations at the Doghouse, or enjoy a refreshing drink at the Seltzer Oasis. The market is open every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and is 90% undercover, so you can shop rain or shine. There's never a charge for parking or admission. Enjoy our monthly classic car cruise-in on the first Saturday of every month, and garage sale weekend, the third weekend of every month. See all we have to offer at DaytonaFleaMarket.com or like us on Facebook. Discover Daytona's most unique shopping experience, the Daytona Flea and Farmers Market, just a mile west of the Speedway. We're back from where it all began, racing's original North Turn Beach Bar and Grill. The Legends of Racing radio show continues with your host, Buzz McKim, and co-host, Gary Keller.
All righty. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate that. And this segment's being brought to you locally by Homewood Suites by Hilton over on Bill France Boulevard, right around the corner from the Speedway. They have great happy hour and great breakfast, complimentary. Every room's a suite, and they're nice people. And if you have anyone coming to town, you want to kind of show off a little bit, go ahead and hook them up with the Homewood Suites by Hilton. And we have Mr. Jimmy Britz. He's got a question for us here.
Jimmy's back in town.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Jimmy.
Buzz, Gary, thanks for what you're doing. Bill, thanks for sharing with us all. Bill, you've been around racing a little while now. In your years of racing, this is twofold. What was the most fun you ever had in a race car?
Okay, that's
Whether
fair.
it's go-karts or the Porsches or the Brabham, for example. If anybody needs to see a picture of that, I have it on my phone. And the other part, in your years around racing, what's the current state of racing today, in your opinion?
Oh, good question. Start with the first one first.
Thanks, Jimmy.
I've had fun racing with you. That's been fun.
It started out go-karts?
Yeah, and we figured out we were the Roger Penske of go-karts. The rules said it was a 6-hour race, and the rules said we had to average 200 pounds to be in the Fat Boys class,
Yeah.
So we had Tommy Riggins and Jimmy and me and Steve Boyle, and we were all well over 200 pounds. And then we had their son, who weighed 90 pounds, and a go-kart racer. Well, it didn't say everybody had to weigh 200 pounds. It said we had to average 200 pounds. So we averaged 201 pounds, put his son in and said, you're on the pole, drop back, get mixed up in the tracks, no one sees where, then start your challenge, right? Flag drop, gone. So they brought us in and added 20 more pounds to us. So we weren't really Roger Penske. We didn't figure out the whole thing. The most fun I ever had in a race car, it was a tragedy to start out, and then it turned out real good. I was running a 24-hour race in a Chevy Camaro at Watkins Glen, with Charlie McCarthy and Charlie Third, his son. And it was one of those days where a rainstorm's coming up. It's like the birds stop flying and street lights come on, that sort of thing. Charlie starting in the car, and we qualified like 13th, somewhere there in the teens. And young Junior goes out in the parking lot to get his jacket and gets struck by lightning.
Holy cow.
Oh, yeah. Third-degree burns, knocks his sight out. And we didn't know it. So the father's lapping around, and I'm getting ready for a stint coming up. We're at the 30 minutes in the race, and someone stuck his head in the pits. Says, "This car 39?" We said, "Yeah." So your driver's struck by lightning. He's in the track hospital.
Jesus.
So the mother was scoring. She takes off with the crew chief. And I said, "We got to get the father in." So I called him up. I said, "You got a pit?" He says, no, everything's fine. I said, "No, we mounted up the wrong tires." I didn't want to tell him your son's struck by lightning. I said, "You mounted the wrong tires." Pulls in, gets him out of the car, telling him, but he goes. So it's just my son, one mechanic, and me. And I got a 24-hour race. I'm 30 minutes into it. And the rules are you can do 2 back-to-back stints, which is 4 hours. So it started drying up, and I'm driving around saying, well, I got to find another driver somewhere. So I saw Jack Baldwin's car by the side of the road. Jack, great driver, Trans Am champ. So I called my son on the radio, said, "See if you can find Jack Baldwin and see if he'll drive with me. I need a driver." So he came back, and we started like at 13th. We went down somewhere in the 40s. And Sunday morning, we were in 5th.
Holy cow.
And we never put a wheel wrong. No one hit us. We didn't hit anybody. And, you don't have to win a race to feel satisfied. You just got to know you gave your best. And he and I gave our best.
With all the scenarios that you were hit with, that's incredible.
Oh, yeah, the rain. And they started something like 60 cars. So there was always a chance you were going to hit somebody. They were going to hit you. But Jack is a great driver. He was always a second and a half faster than I was. I'd try, and he'd just wreck one off, But in an endurance race, it's all about staying out of trouble and staying out on the track. And that was good. That was my best race.
How did the
Thanks
kid
for
turn out
asking.
after he got hit by lightning?
I just talked to him about an hour ago because
kidding.
I'm restoring I bought one of the cars that I drove.
Really?
And he's got all the decals. He went to work for the Catholic Church. I think he got a message there. I'm not sure. And he's got all the decals for the car, and we're going to meet up next week. He's in Tampa.
Oh, really?
And I'm going to finish the car.
Holy cow. That's amazing.
Before you answer the second segment of Jimmy's question, let's get back to IROC for just 1 second.
Okay.
And tell me about, there were people that never really tried to manipulate the IROC cars, but there was one person that did. Tell me about that.
Who would you think?
Well, it was a great guess. I mean, what you told me, Bobby.
Bobby Unser. he figured out how to bypass the rev limiter. I'm not surprised. I had a little something behind the dash, but he was the only guy of the professional drivers that looked for the unfair advantage.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
He was crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I can tell you more, but I'm not going to.
I never met either brother. Were they fantastic people?
They were diametrically opposed. Al was quiet and determined and just as nice as he could be. Bobby was as nice as he could be, but, well, the funny story. Funny story. So, Evie Gurney calls me, Dan Gurney's wife, calls me before. Says, "I see you got Bobby for your honoree." I said, "Yeah." He says, "How are you going to control him?" I said, how am I going to control him? He says, "Well, he can be a bit wild." I said, no. I used to be a public affairs officer in the Air Force. I handle nuclear accidents. I can handle Bobby Unser. So my sponsor was Mercedes-Benz, and we're at dinner with 800 people, black tie, and Bobby gets up. I introduce him. Says, I used to race for Audi, and all the Mercedes people are looking down the table at me, and I'm smiling. I learned one thing when I raced for Audi. I learned that Germans hate Americans. Oh, God. The whole audience is rumbling. And Mercedes people are glaring at me like this, and I got 20 minutes to go with this guy, right? And then he hears the rumble. He doubles down. He says, "Oh, no, it's true. Germans hate Americans." Then he said something else about Andretti I can't repeat, using a word you don't normally use. And then Joe Bezzetta gets up and walks out. I said, "Okay, we've offended the Germans and we've offended the Italians. Now what's on the next?" I finally got through, but
wow.
The dinner
how do you damage control after that?
The dinner couldn't end fast enough for me.
Oh my gosh!
Was that the last time Mercedes-Benz sponsored any?
No, they lasted a few more years.
Did they? Oh wow, that's great. Okay,
that's
getting
amazing.
back to Jimmy's second half of the question. How has the sport changed in your opinion?
Well, it's changed a lot.
Yeah, of course.
My first race to attend at Daytona was 1960.
Wow.
And Roger Penske drove for Brumos Porsche in an RSK.
Wow.
No kidding.
Yeah. And I had a little Chickadee I'd haul around. I was, 17 years old. And back then, you didn't have to have a pit pass. You just walk up to the wall, you know. They didn't look at your age or anything, so it was fun. And a featured race would have 12 cars.
Really?
That was about it. They had the 2 Scarabs. They had Roger Penske. They had a couple RSKs and a Bocar.
Mm-hmm.
A Bocar was driven by a guy from Windermere, Florida. And the race counterclockwise. They raced clockwise, not counterclockwise. And the race started from the pit road.
No
And
kidding.
they'd race up, come around the banking the back way.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot now because they're going the other direction. But racing in general, the grandstands are 10 rows high, and the press box looked like something from a high school. But racing in general, I've gotten kind of. I don't mean to bite the hand that feeds you, but.
Can you hold a second?
Yeah.
All right, we got a quick break to take.
Yep.
And we'll be right back with Bill
right.
Warner,
Okay.
everybody.
The caution flag is out. Time for a break. We'll be right back with the Legends of Racing radio show. Welcome to Homewood Suites by Hilton in Daytona Beach. You're right in the middle of all the action. Daytona International Speedway, the airport, One Daytona, Florida's newest entertainment and retail destination, and of course, the world's most famous beach. You'll love our newly remodeled 1 and 2 bedroom suites, along with our popular King Studios. You won't need your full kitchen, as Homewood Suites Daytona serves up complimentary breakfast and evening social. It's like home away from home. Go to HomewoodDaytona.com for Homewood Suites by Hilton in Daytona Beach. We're back from where it all began. Racing's original North Turn Beach Bar and Grill. The Legends of Racing radio show continues with your host, Buzz McKim, and co-host, Gary Keller.
All right.
Hey, thank you, everybody. We're back here with Bill Warner, and we have a question from Don Bach, another fantastic racing photographer.
I've known
right there.
Don since 1967. We decided we shoot races together.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll
So
be
I've
darned.
salted the audience with all this stuff for you.
Oh, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Bill, you told us about your favorite photo, but how about telling us about the time when you were supposed to shoot Sebring for both Road and Track and Car and Driver, and you decided you couldn't get enough pictures for both magazines, so you gave Car and Driver to me. And how about telling them about the picture you wish you'd got?
Yeah, well, that's right. So I was working for Sports Car Graphic at the time, and I didn't know that they were tanking. It was going to be the last issue. They went out of business. And so Road and Track called me to shoot too. It was Road and Track. So I said, I can't do both. The magazines didn't want one photographer to do photos for 2 magazines. So I called Don. I said, would you shoot for Road and Track? Yeah. So I got into a Road and Track job. We go to the hairpin at Sebring. And I always used like a 250 millimeter lens and get him coming around. And he had the right lens at the right time at the right place. And it was Greg Young was driving a Ferrari 512. Came down, lost his brakes in the hairpin, went airborne in the air.
Oh, man.
Came down upside down, burst into flames. The workers were pushing the car up and pulling him out. And I had this long lens. I couldn't get anything. He got the whole thing.
Oh, my
airborne,
gosh.
car spinning in the air. And everything.
Wow.
And but
That-
I'm glad he got it.
Yeah.
But Don's is a great photographer, and I'm glad he got that job.
Thank you, Don, for being here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, appreciate
You
it.
asked about
Don
the
and
changes
Norma.
of racing.
But, yeah, you were talking about the way races changed over
Yeah.
the years.
I don't want to be negative about it, but to me, I call NASCAR cars jelly beans. The only difference is colors. And now you got to buy. The body is composite. The chassis is done by Dallara. The gear package is done by somebody. You got 3 engine packages. You got Toyota, you got Roush, and you got Childress, I guess, or Hendrick. It's
Cookie cutter.
cookie cutter. And to NASCAR's credit, they've done what they wanted to do. If they had the dream, every car that starts a race would cross the finish line at the same time. But in doing so, I think they've created a dangerous situation. And Ryan Newman was an example of that. He had the race in the bag. How long ago was that? 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, about that.
Got tapped, goes airborne. Another car hits him in the roof. He ends up in the hospital. Could have killed him.
Yeah.
In the old days, if someone got a good lead, the the debris flag would come out, right?
Yeah.
The photographers always bet what lap of the last 10 would the debris flag come out and bunch everybody out. This was no secret, you know. NASCAR would throw the flag to bunch them up for a finish. They want a good finish. They want the crowd to see it. So it was contrived. And if you went up on, and Don Bach will remember this, if you went up on the stand in the pit road, the photo stand, there was a sign up there that said, International Speedway Corporation, a sports entertainment corporation.
Bingo, entertainment.
So they want to put on a good show, and homogenizing the cars, they've got what they want. This may be funny, but the biggest entertainment I get out of racing right now, two series I like, and one's kind of a spec series, is IndyCar. I think IndyCar puts on a good show. I went to Gainesville Drags with the Scrappers 2 years ago, and to watch top fuelers get down on the line, see them launch, feel it. I mean, it's visceral. Your flesh vibrates on your bones.
Right.
They do 1,000 feet at 330 miles an hour in 3 seconds.
Stupid.
That's impressive, though, isn't it?
It is. Quarter mile,
But
we talked about this. I mean, you know, these cars have so much power. They went from a half mile to a quarter mile.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's
Now,
just,
they're 1,000 feet.
Yeah,
1,000 feet.
It's
Now,
just-
here's another thing in sports car racing. They got this balance of performance, where if you have an edge, if you develop an edge, they're taking innovation out of racing by standardizing. If you have an edge, they'll plug you in and they'll dial you back. And so what they get is, like they've had the last 2 24-hour races. Everybody's on the same lap. There's seconds between them. It's exciting to see. I use the analogy of basketball. You watch a tip-off. You go to the refrigerator, get a beer, drink it, go to sleep on the couch. You have your wife wake you up with 10 laps to go. I mean, does anybody disagree with that?
No, you're right.
We're right there.
That's right.
I know.
Yeah.
I know my friend Mike Bowen. We've talked about it. It's about the truth. Watch the last 20, 30 races.
Well, I was on the scanner one time listening, and Ward Burton got on. You had a very distinctive voice.
Yes.
All right, I said, well, fellas, we're going to drive around for 450 miles and race for 50. And that's what you're seeing. I don't want to condemn NASCAR for it because they have created what they want. But for the spectator or anybody who's interested in technology, can you imagine Jim Hall showing up at a race with a sucker car and they go, no, we're going to dial you back. That was an innovation right out of Chevrolet.
Yeah.
Or the Wing, or everything they did in sports car racing. Can-Am was great because the rules were open. And you could say that Porsche killed it with the 91730. I don't know. The series may have killed itself. But when you start standardizing everything, yes, it makes a good race, but it becomes less interesting for people like me.
Yeah. I think you said it right. They went full fold on the entertainment aspect, and I think it's hurt them.
Yeah.
I think they went too far.
I'll probably never get a press pass again.
Me neither. You and I have been to so many races. Who gives a shit? We don't care.
Yeah. Hey, you said you had a quick Marvin Panch story. We got a couple of minutes here.
Yeah. Before the Daytona Speedway opened, they used to race sports cars on New Smyrna Airport. And Marvin Panch was brought in by Ford to drive what they called the Battle Birds. They made 2 Thunderbirds, aluminum sheet metal. One had a Lincoln Hilburn injected engine. The other had a McCullough supercharged Thunderbird engine. Marvin Panch was one of the drivers. I'm trying to think who drove the second car. Do you remember, John? Curtis Turner was in the Corvette SR2. So towards the end, Marvin was right on Carroll Shelby's tail. Carroll Shelby was in a Ferrari 410, a big engine V12 car. And Marvin was hanging right in there, and I asked him about 30 years later, I said, could you have passed Shelby? He says, yeah, I could have. I said, well, why didn't you? He says, I was paid to beat the Corvettes. And that's what he did. He just enough to win, right? He finished in second place.
That's right.
And we got time for a quick Jack Roush story.
Real quick.
Yeah,
We got 2 minutes.
All right. I found a King Cobra. I needed an engine. I was driving a Jack Roush car in Ohio. I told him I had the car. He says, I'll build you an engine. I said, I can't afford you. He said, you can't afford not to. So I sent him this 5-bolt 289 I found. He built an engine, a Weber carb, put it in the car. I said, I owe you something. No, you don't owe me anything. He said, I owe you something. No, I don't owe you. So I said, I went to Winn-Dixie. I went to Dan Davis. I said, Publix and Food Lion have cars in the Daytona 500, but Winn-Dixie doesn't. He says, well, yeah, you're right. He says, well, we should have one there. So I called Jack Roush up. He flew down. I said, I got you a sponsor. He says, you're kidding. We go in, and the ad agency had the Beef People Express.
Really?
It was going to have the lariat like the Marlboro Man and beef going down. They sold the deal to beef people to support Winn-Dixie. You know, it's a trade out on shelf space and all that stuff. So Jack gets me out in the hallway, says, I told you to get me a sponsor just to blow you off. He got me a sponsor. He said, I just signed Folgers. We can't do two teams. What can we do? I said, I don't know. He said, will they do the Bush thing? I said, well, go back in and ask him. Went back in the room, put together the Bush deal for Mark Martin.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What a hell of a story.
Right.
This has been fantastic. It's gone by way too fast.
You got to come back.
Yeah.
Got to come back.
We'd love
I told all the stories, and I make the most of it.
Yeah.
I still have a bunch of notes here we didn't get to.
Yeah, amazing.
So we'll give it a shot here in between your adventures and your acquisitions. But Mr. Bill Warner, wasn't that fantastic,
thank you.
everybody?
All right.
All righty.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next week.
I'm mesmerized.
The Legends of Racing radio show originates live from the very spot where beach racing began, racing's North Turn Beach Bar and Grill. Join us next time for the Legends of Racing radio show with host Buzz McKim and co-host Gary